Welcome back to Daily AI News at Let's Data Science. It's 27th July 2026. Today, we're diving into some pivotal developments from the future of machine intelligence to major product launches. Let's get to it. Our top story today: NVIDIA is reportedly discussing a financing guarantee of roughly $250 billion to support OpenAI's lease of a proposed 10 gigawatt data center project in southern Ohio. The Wall Street Journal first reported the talks, while Bloomberg separately described a possible guarantee of as much as $250 billion. According to the reports, the project is being developed by a SoftBank Energy subsidiary and could ultimately cost more than $500 billion, including the chips installed at the site. Reuters said it could not independently verify the reports, and NVIDIA, OpenAI, and the United States Commerce Department had not confirmed any agreement. The reported guarantee would support the lease and related infrastructure financing rather than the NVIDIA chips themselves, while Reuters also described separate discussions around financing for chip purchases. The first phase is reported to target roughly 800 megawatts by 2028, before potentially expanding to 10 gigawatts. At this stage, the negotiations remain preliminary and could change significantly or fail altogether. But they highlight how frontier AI increasingly depends not only on accelerator supply, but also on financing, power, construction, and long-term infrastructure commitments. From financing AI infrastructure to governing advanced models, Illinois has enacted the Artificial Intelligence Safety Measures Act, signed by Governor J.B. Pritzker on July 6th. The law takes effect on January 1st, 2027, with annual independent audits beginning in 2028, or 90 days after a developer first qualifies. According to the statute, it applies to frontier foundation models trained above 10 to the 26 operations when the developer and its affiliates exceed $500 million in annual revenue. Covered developers must publish and follow a frontier AI framework addressing catastrophic risk, model weight security, governance, incident response, and third-party use. Independent auditors must meet competence and independence requirements, use generally accepted auditing standards, assess both compliance and internal controls, and produce reports that developers must publish in redacted form and submit to Illinois authorities. The law also requires disclosures, reporting of critical safety incidents, and protections for workers who raise safety concerns. Illinois says this is the first state requirement for recurring third-party audits of frontier AI developers, adding a new governance layer alongside related laws in California and New York. Shifting from regulation to research, a revised ArcSiv study explores how reinforcement learning could improve weather and climate simulations by replacing fixed model parameters with state-dependent functions that adapt during execution. The researchers evaluated 9 reinforcement learning algorithms across 3 idealized environments and reported that truncated quantile critics, deep deterministic policy gradient, and twin-delayed deep deterministic policy gradient delivered the strongest stable performance. In federated experiments, a 6-agent deep deterministic policy gradient configuration achieved the lowest reported area-weighted root mean squared error across tested tropical and mid-latitude regions. The work targets long-standing challenges in climate modeling, where fixed parameter values can contribute to persistent bias. Rather than relying entirely on offline tuning, reinforcement learning policies adjust parameters as the simulated climate evolves. The authors have also released a public climate-RL repository and a Zenodo software package to support reproducibility. They emphasize that the experiments remain limited to idealized test beds and do not yet demonstrate performance in full operational weather or climate models. Continuing with AI infrastructure, Australian company 1414 Degrees has signed a heads of agreement with an unnamed data center operator to develop up to 1 gigawatt of AI data center capacity at the Aurora Energy Precinct in South Australia. The proposal begins with an indicative 17 megawatt campus before expanding to a 200 megawatt anchor site and potentially reaching 1 gigawatt as renewable generation grows. The agreement grants exclusivity over an initial 40-hectare parcel, while 414 Degrees would provide land, power, and connectivity, and the operator would supply capital and operating expertise. The company says the precinct has potential for up to 900 megawatts of solar generation, along with an approved battery energy storage system. However, most commercial terms remain non-binding. Power tariffs, lease arrangements, revenue sharing, approvals, and definitive contracts are still subject to negotiation, and the operator has not been identified publicly. The announcement outlines a long-term development pathway rather than a committed 1 gigawatt deployment, making it an early-stage infrastructure framework rather than a finalized build. Looking at AI deployment at the city scale, Boston Consulting Group released its inaugural Intelligent Cities Index, covering 61 cities. Singapore ranked 11th in the accelerating tier, while Hong Kong placed 36th in the emerging tier. The index measures outcomes, strategy, AI adoption, institutional practices, and enabling conditions, emphasizing that infrastructure, talent, governance, and funding all shape successful AI deployment. Turning to healthcare, a scoping review in NPJ Digital Medicine examined 21 studies of generative AI mental health chatbots across 11 countries. Users frequently reported convenience, personalization, and empathy, but engagement often declined over time. The authors conclude that evidence on long-term clinical effectiveness and standardized safety evaluation remains limited, despite promising early user experiences. Remaining with reinforcement learning, a revised ArcSieve paper proposes generalized Gaussian temporal difference error modeling for uncertainty-aware reinforcement learning. The method adds a state-conditioned shape model and batch inverse error variance regularization to better capture heavy-tailed temporal difference errors. The authors report task-dependent improvements over Gaussian-based approaches and have released an official PyTorch implementation on GitHub. From research to industrial applications, LG CNS has joined CuspAI's AI Materials Foundry as a founding member and delivery partner for South Korean manufacturers. The 48-member consortium includes NVIDIA, Meta, AMD, 3M, and Merck. LG CNS says customer data will remain isolated, model training will exclude client data, and patent ownership for newly developed materials will stay with customers. On the retail front, Michaels has formally launched its Ask Mike shopping assistant, built with Google Cloud's Gemini Enterprise for customer experience. The retailer reports nearly 75,000 conversations, with more than 60% focused on product discovery. Michaels also says assistant users converted at more than twice the rate of traditional search users, although those performance figures are company reported. And finally, D'Addario has denied using generative AI in a promotional video for its extended-range guitar strings after online criticism. The company says musicians recorded the guitars while drums and synthesizers were MIDI programmed using conventional production techniques. No independent technical audit has confirmed how the original video was produced, so the dispute remains unresolved. And that's your AI briefing for today. The landscape is moving faster than ever, and we'll be here to track it with you. For more insights, visit us at letsdatascience.com. Thanks for tuning in, stay curious, and we'll be back tomorrow with the latest in AI.